Welcome everyone. My name is Anna-Rita. As Marissa mentioned, I'm the Managing Director for Palisade Compliance in the Japan and Asia-Pacific region. And today I will be discussing with you the Oracle Java licensing and any changes that have been applied to that and how that affects you. And when I'm through with my session, I'll be handing it over to Albert to discuss Azul Systems Java support offerings and criteria with you as well. Just a little bit about Palisade Compliance. We're an independent consulting firm working with organizations, helping them to take back control of Oracle. We also have an online on-demand learning facility that helps organizations to, in their own time, subscribe individually or as groups to go through course material that we have available that continually gets updated, again, to help them to gain knowledge and have control over their Oracle licensing. So today we're really going to focus on Java, as you are all aware. I will touch a little bit more about Palisade and our clients, and then we'll look at Java licensing and the background of where it started and where we are today. We will then discuss Oracle's Java licensing, the changes that they've applied, what you can do now, and then what your next steps are. So just briefly a little bit about Palisade. We are a totally independent consulting services company. And what I mean with independence is that we are 100% independent from Oracle. So we don't sell Oracle licenses, we don't have a partnership with Oracle, and we also don't work underneath any of those services where it could be compromised in the service that we provide to you. We now currently have, I think it's over 450 actually since I've put this together, clients globally. And we just empower and help people be in control. We know that the Oracle space is complex and it's fraught with difficulties. So organizations often need an advocate or somebody that can work with them that has got the knowledge and the background to help them. And in the Palisade team, particularly on the delivery side, we've got a combined of over 200 years of experience in this space that we bring to the table to help organizations and to empower them. And then lastly, there's just a list here of some of our customers that we can publicly share. You'll be appreciative of the fact that a lot of customers prefer to be kept confidential. They are happy to provide us with one-on-one referrals, but not necessarily broadcasted all over. But here's just some indications of our customers. And I'm very pleased to say that for our region, our NPS score that we get from our customers over the last 5 years is in the 90s. So we are very proud of the services that we deliver to clients. And what are these services? 9 years ago when our founder and CEO, Craig Guranti, started Palisade, his idea was to maybe take a little bit more relaxed view of his life after 16 years working long hours at Oracle. And he wanted to just negotiate a couple of big deals for large global organizations. But very quickly it became apparent that there's far more needed. There were other questions and other issues that Oracle clients and customers had to deal with. Things like I'm being audited, or I'm being threatened by an audit, or I have been audited and I don't know if it's accurate because suddenly I'm owing a lot of money, or I want to know whether I'm getting a good deal from Oracle. In the last 2 years, there are two main questions that we often get asked or approached with. And the one is, I want to reduce my Oracle cost. So we spend a lot of engagement helping organizations identify how and where they can reduce costs with Oracle. But what we are discussing today is around Java. So there's a lot of confusion and there's a lot of information out there that is not clear or that is one-sided. And there's a belief, which is quite interesting, that only Oracle can provide you with Java support, which is not true. And it's part of the reason for this webinar that we're having today. So there's a lot of questions around Oracle Java, and we hope through this session that we can answer some of those, or as a minimum give you some direction as to your Java requirements and your next steps. Before we go into these questions though, I would like to hand over to Marissa. We've got some poll questions, just seeking your advice or your view of your Oracle Java or any Java related questions. It's very easy. You can just read through it and select one. The current question is, what is your current relationship with Oracle? And maybe why, while you guys are busy going through this, if I can ask Albert, Albert, do you see an increase, or you see more organizations paying vendors for JDK support?
Yeah, yes, we do, Anna-Rita. I mean, it's we don't have statistics on the full, worldwide number of customers that require it. But certainly, since the time period of May 2019, there's been more and more interest, and a lot of it's driven by cybersecurity and the concerns, which I'll touch upon later.
And that makes a lot of sense because that's very important and prominent. And I know, talking to a third-party organization that does security consulting work for organizations, that Java is a big risk for a lot of organizations. So you would expect that to happen. All right. So interestingly enough here, there's sort of an agreement across people having, signed contracts with Oracle, figuring it out, using OpenJDK. So I would say, looking at this, that there are definitely a lot of work still that needs to be done in this space. People are concerned about it and they're trying to do stuff about it. Our second question there, so this asks the question, are you currently paying a vendor for JDK support? Yes, no, or I don't know. And again, this would be quite interesting, from what we see from an Oracle perspective. Most probably not as many people long-term jumping into it, but wanting to really understand what they need support for and what not. There's an interesting one, Albert.
Yeah.
Yeah, 67% of people say no, they're not currently paying. So I think if that is the case, you're most probably going to find the session very useful because it's really in that space that we're going to talk about what is to offer and what's out there and what do you need to consider in order to address your Java situation. So thank you very much, everyone, for responding. That's really some good information. So next, let's sort of go back to the beginning and let's have a look at the background of Java. Now, Java was created in the 90s, in 1990 to be exact, and it went publicly available in 1995. And understandably, it was free, it is open source. Sun really picked up on that in the early days and created a lot of applets and stuff that was released. And again, it was all free of charge at the time. And I even recall in my own days at Oracle that we continually had to update our version of Java applet that we were using with various Oracle products and other third-party products. So Java's always played, particularly with how we use computers now, and the technology and stuff have become very, very popular and sits behind a lot of internet sites and stuff that are being used. So in 2010, a lot of things really started to happen. Oracle acquired Sun. They also then lost James Gosling, who was the original creator of Java. And Oracle decided to take some organizations, the likes of Google, on over their use of Java for their Android operating systems. And that is public knowledge, how all of that played out and what it meant. And there was a lot of debate at the time around the legitimacy of this, as Java is open source. But most probably what is the most important is the announcement that Oracle made in May 2018, when they announced that there will be new rules for Oracle Java Standard Edition and how that would operate. And this is quite important because I quote verbatim here from Larry Ellison that made this quote. He says that Java was the single most important software asset we have ever acquired. And the reason why Larry would say this is that Java, in a friendly way, I refer to it as the cockroach of the internet, because Java you will find everywhere. Java is not just connected to Oracle or Oracle applications, but Java could sit anywhere else, and in third-party applications other than Oracle, on all kinds of spaces where Oracle, up to that point, might never have had any reach or visibility to. So Java, from Oracle's perspective, is a very valuable tool, particularly when they decided in January 2019 to commoditize Java and put some cost to that. And that had quite an implication for organizations that were using Java. And the way that Oracle changed this licensing of Java then also had an effect on every organization using it, depending on the version as well. And it became quite complicated. But as a high level, some of the changes that Oracle brought about, or that had the biggest impact, was that any Oracle Java Standard Edition version 11 or later that any organization was using would require a license. Now, when you go read the fine print and go through all of the details, you will find that there are a few exceptions to that requirement to have license. But as it is notorious with any other products, you know, when it is free, there's a lot of restrictions or criteria around it that will make it more difficult to actually operate under that free license. The other thing that Oracle did is that if you were running an older version, so a version pre-version 11, and you want support, or you were using it for commercial use under the definition of Oracle for commercial features or use, you would also require to purchase a license. And if you were using Open Java releases, you could only do so for the first 6 months of that release. And then changes were made to how Oracle also provides support in this space. And I think when Albert talked to you, he'll be discussing some of those as well. Now, important to note that in the Java space, and you can potentially say with some of our other products that Oracle have as well, there's a lot of overlap or integration between all of these different flavors of Java. And this makes it quite difficult, not just for Oracle, but also for you to manage and to make sure that you are licensing what needs to be licensed, but you're not licensing stuff that don't need to be licensed, and that you understand what you can use and how you can use it and in what space. So what do you need to license? So here are some questions to ask yourself. And if you want a little bit more detail, Palisade has a one-page matrix that if you want, you can just reach out to us and we'll forward it to you. That just helps guide you by asking questions as to, is there license requirements in your case or isn't there? So you can ask yourself, am I running Oracle Java version 11 or higher? Am I running a version of Java prior to that, but I need security patches and bug fixes, which unfortunately for the nature of Java is most of the cases you do need to have support on your Java. Are you using commercial features? Are you running any hardware that are not for general purpose or a computer that are not for general purpose? And are you running OpenJDK and you want support more than that 6 months of the original release period? And if you answer yes to any of these, you know, the likelihood that you need a license is most probably 100%. You definitely need to acquire some licenses. So every Java customer has to make a decision. You have a choice. And your 3 choices are really this. You either pay Oracle for Java licenses and support, or you run OpenJDK, you know, or you can go unsupported, or you upgrade every 6 months to remain under the free support. Or you can look at independent providers like Azul and others to acquire Java licenses and support from them. Because the reality is Oracle is not the only one, or they don't own Java open source. What you pay for Oracle is the support and patches and stuff that you get for your Java particular version that you are using. So the period of not worrying about Java is really coming to an end, or is to an end, so to speak. And I know many conversations that we have with people when we are at Gartner or other events, people would say, you know, we have no intention of having Oracle licenses. But now with Java and Oracle commoditizing Java, we might be at risk. We might be using Java in a way from our Sundays or from however we originally created it, that has an implication for licensing for us. So inadvertently, they've become part of that Oracle ecosystem. But it is coming to an end. As I said, these changes took place January 2019. We're now more than 18 months, going towards 2 years since that change was made. So it's becoming less and less flexible for you to make decisions and changes. And it is one of the hot topics, as I said, around license requirements for organizations. With that said, what are Oracle doing at the moment from what we experience and we see from our clients? And what are customers of Oracle doing at this point? And I'll first address Oracle. We don't actually see any Oracle audits specifically for Java. So as we know, Oracle is prolific with auditing organizations, and that is definitely there, and it's increasing from our perspective. But Java itself, we don't see Oracle audit. And I would say potentially because Java isn't straightforward Oracle. And because there's so many nuances and things to it, it is a much harder space to audit. And although we do a lot of self-audits on behalf of organizations for them, it's something that takes a lot of time and effort. What we do see Oracle do, though, is use audits as a mechanism or a lever to get organizations to buy Java licenses. And one of the best ways that they do this is by offering unlimited Java agreements. And when we look at unlimited licenses, whether it's Java or database middleware, you know, there are things to consider around that. And normally unlimited licenses come at a high price. So important to make sure that when you enter into an agreement like that, that you do it in a way that is suitable for your organization and that is based on some real solid facts and not just, you know, numbers that are thrown around. From a customer perspective, we're seeing that customers are opting to rather buy short term, so maybe buy a 12-month subscription for Java licenses from Oracle to gain some time to figure things out and to work through the requirements. And it's at this stage that we get a lot of organizations reaching out to us, asking us to help them to not only understand it, but to determine what their Java requirements are and what the best outcome for them would be, and if there are any alternatives. And that's why we have conversations like this, and we also you know, talk to friends that we have, like Azul and that offer other alternatives in this space, you know, so that you have a real good view of what your options are and you can make the best decision rather than feeling you don't, you know, have any choice, but you have to go just down one single track. So as I said, you have time, but I don't think much longer. I think people have to start, and we can see with the acceleration and the queries or the request for help with Java, that this is definitely the case, that it's ramping up, because for all we know, tomorrow there will be Java audits that start happening or pressure that comes on that might not put you in the best position. So what should you be doing now? First of all, educate yourself. Make sure you understand what Oracle Java means, what OpenJDK means. Assess what any of your potential risk and exposure could be, how you would remediate any of those exposures. Look at what is your preferred technical direction, and then negotiate off that. If you have all of those facts, you can then negotiate the right license and support agreement that works for your organization. And is that not necessarily just based on whatever you know, seems to be the obvious thing. And I know there are customers that have gone and just bought Java licenses because they know it's on every server that they've got. And they just spend millions and millions of dollars that wasn't necessarily accurately evaluated and done. So make sure that you have the right facts before you make that final decision. But start with it. As I said, the time is running out. So we can assist with some of this, not all of it, but you know, please reach out if there's anything or you've got any questions that we can't address in this forum or don't address, that we can assist and help you with. So in order to really establish what your requirements are, there are 5 buckets, and I'm not going to go through each of this, each question individually here. As Marissa mentioned in the beginning, we will be sharing this deck, and you can you know, ponder on these questions, complete them, and use them as part of determining your particular requirements. But there are 5 major criteria that you need to evaluate. Those are contracts, products, the deployment, maintenance, and your roadmap. What we mean by contracts is that you need to first understand whether you've got current contracts that has Java licenses in it or that manages your Java licenses. And you might have even contracts from third parties, or you might have contracts outside of Oracle contracts that you have Java in. So understanding what your contractual position is around Java is one of the most important things. The products are also important to consider. Oracle has a number of products, particularly the middleware, where you either get runtime, limited use, or in some cases full use Java licenses included in middleware products, things like WebLogic Suite, WebLogic Standard Edition, but even in some of the other required products like Coherence and stuff, there are Java abilities in there. So when you know where you've got Java, would also help you or go towards a credit towards your Java requirements potentially in the bigger picture. So important to know what products you've got and which of those have got Java in it. Then how you deploy, are you generally using Java as general use, or are they all commercial use? Is there a mixture of those? How does it sit? What does Java use? Which devices does it utilize? Which versions are using? All of that, as far as the deployment of Java is concerned, would also have an impact because there's different requirements for licensing across those two. Then most probably the most important thing is around maintenance. Do you need support for security reasons and patches for bugs and stuff as well? That would require licensing. And then what is your long-term goal with Java? Are you planning to upgrade? Do you want to go to a newer version? What are your requirements and timelines vital in order to make a decision? So all of this you need to consider. And I'm going to hand over to Albert from Azul to talk about Azul's offerings. And, all of this you can consider, and I'm sure some of these even Albert might be answering for you during the session. So Albert, over to you.
Great. Thanks a lot, Anna-Rita. Appreciate your introduction, and hopefully that gives you a little bit of foundation in terms of the little bit of the history. And what I'll do here is talk a little about Azul, about our customers, go a little bit more in depth in terms of how this may impact you and what we can offer. So to begin with, for those that aren't familiar with Azul, we're the largest company, 100% focused on Java and JVM. This is all we do, and we do it very well. We're a private, profitable, and a pure play software company based in Silicon Valley. We have the largest Java engineering team, second only to Oracle, and have been shipping Java for over 15 years with over 88 countries represented by partners. We're proud to say that we power some of the well-known companies and logos in the world. So 27% of the Fortune 100, the top 10, all of them, financial service firms, and half the top 10 world brands, valuable brands, such as like MasterCard or Netflix, Priceline, some of these vendors you might have heard of before. And we also build the Java distribution for Microsoft Azure and Azure Stack, and that's something we've been doing for years. From a company perspective, we're fast growth, 71% year on year, and unlike other vendors now, perhaps due to the risks and the impact of the coronavirus, that we're actually growing pretty rapidly. I myself recently joined the firm. My two peers in America and Europe also came on board early this year. And in this Asia-Pacific region, which I'm responsible for, we're actively hiring in multiple countries right now. But probably how it affects you more than that is the fact that 99% of our customers are satisfied with our solution and renew regularly, which we're proud of. In terms of technology, Azul works. We work extensively within Java ecosystem to evolve and improve the production Java. So what that means is, for those familiar with Java, we're not only a member of the Java community process, the JCP, which develops standard technical specifications for Java technology, but one of the 16 members of the executive committee. We're also members of the OpenJDK vulnerability group, so we help ensure coordinate release of critical security updates and patches, which is important for all of our customers. And we're dedicated. Since January 2019, we've backported 71 Java critical vulnerabilities, and we fixed it. And we're consistently delivering security patches in essentially real time whenever they're released. We provide a same open source Java technology as Oracle, but with lower costs and better support, which we'll discuss a little bit later in the slides. And we have a guaranteed minimum of 30% savings relative to Oracle. Here's a breadth of customers that we have. I just want to share with you across Asia Pacific. And I'd like to note that a lot of brands that you'll be familiar with, and fundamentally, whatever type of customer you are, whether you're large or small, whichever industry that you belong to, that we have the breadth and depth of coverage to help you with proven technology and industry expertise. Some of the noteworthy ones I want to highlight is, one of the largest banks in Australia recently replaced Oracle's licensing, which we've been told is quite complicated and expensive, with our Zulu Enterprise solution. Similarly speaking, we had a large bank in Singapore do the same thing. In terms of South Korea, we have a well-known home appliance company that purchased Zulu. In this particular case, it was for their end customer, which was a global automotive manufacturer. And we actually embed our Zulu licenses amongst all the vehicle infotainment systems worldwide. Beyond these, that we also have a customer in the insurance sector, which had not updated their Java in over 6 months due to the changes of Oracle licensing policies. So just like Anna-Rita were saying, some people are just doing either short-term contracts or really stepping back and analyzing how this impacts them. But they have a pretty large size environment of over 10,000 servers, and they decided to commit to us. And in the process, we saved them over 1.2 million US per year over Oracle. So what is Zulu Enterprise or Oracle equivalent solution? Well, it's a guaranteed drop-in replacement for Oracle Java, 100% open source, based on OpenJDK, which is the open source project that drives Java, and it's tested and certified to be Java compliant. So what does that mean? There's a term in the Java world called Technology Compatibility Kit, or TCK. And in order to be tested, certified, and fully standards, you need to conduct over 150,000 tests to provide assurance that the binary code matches the standard. And that's what we do every single time, 150,000 tests to make sure that it adheres to the best standards in the world. We offer flexible pricing, and that's something that a lot of our customers are really happy to hear. And we're backed by Azul's global distributed support team. So one of the quotes that we highlight in the bottom from the chief security officer states that our support team is unparalleled. If there's an issue, they respond and things are fixed within an hour. They never fail to meet that SLA. What I find anecdotally beyond that, because I receive support comments every week, is that quite often, because we're such experts, that not only do solve Java problems that customers ask for, but quite often we're solving problems that have nothing to relate to Azul at all. But we're more than happy to, and we've been a very well-known, committed support partner as well to our customers. We have a broad array of support for hardware and software platforms, and we have millions of deployed systems as well. So with that said, let me delve into a little bit deeper about what happened in 2019, the year that everything changed. And in particular, this was actually April 19th, 2019, when Oracle made this announcement. And that was with updates that Oracle published a list of security vulnerabilities without providing free updates for the versions of Java, which nearly everyone used. So that was one of the key things. But beyond that, you should note that the release pace, traditionally it's been slower, and from that point onwards, it occurred every 6 months instead of several years. From a compatibility standpoint, with the 6-month cadence, the rate of feature development was fast. That's good for you. Good features, updated. But the bad thing is most organizations don't use the latest version. Like you don't update every 6 months, most likely. And the fact that a lot of legacy users, particularly in the banking sector, they still use Java 6. And the question is, are you secure? In terms of version overlap, that becomes challenging as well, because when you have all these updates, and start off, as I mentioned, in terms of Java 9, now we're on 14, that since Java 9, most versions don't overlap. So that becomes a challenge as well. And security is something that we like to highlight, because that's something that affects most people, if not all of you, particularly with cybersecurity concerns. And in the next few slides, let me touch upon that a little bit more. To begin with, for those of you that may not be familiar, there's an organization worldwide well known as a MITRE ATT&CK framework, which lists out hundreds of vulnerabilities that you should be aware of in order to be secure. I know that one of the major banks in Singapore, as an example, they do a self-evaluation to the MITRE ATT&CK framework where they color coordinate each of the boxes as red, green, and yellow. If you're green, that means secure. If you're red, that means they're vulnerable and they have to buy technology. Anyway, these are called CVEs, or common vulnerability exposures. And there's thousands of these that occur all the time. Think about all the cyber criminals out there trying to break into your organization. With all these thousands, then what they've done is they created a scoring system, a common vulnerability scoring system, or CVSS, which is rated between 0 and 10. It's a combination of exact access vectors, attack complexity, authentication, metrics, integrity, and so forth. And this helps you prioritize amongst all these thousands, which ones are important and which ones aren't as important. Those rated 7 or higher are deemed to be high importance, and those considered 9 are critical. And something to note is that these numbers themselves, they're not linear. So the complexity of the number comes more from the formula, which drives the feature and a number of dependent variables that go along with it. So in some respects, it's a little bit like a Richter scale. That 7 is significantly higher than a 6, not just linearly one step higher. So if you understand these vulnerabilities which occur frequently, let me show you the impact of this, in terms of a timeline. So this graph shows, first of all, on the bottom that every quarter when they release these patches, there's a number of vulnerabilities that are resolved. The bottom table shows the top 5 in that quarter. So as an example, in January 19th, the top 5 was as low as 3.1 and the highest was 6.1. The blue line shows the highest number that occurred that particular quarter. And the line here shows 7s, the ones that are considered high. Anything above that, you should you should install the vulnerability patch as soon as possible. And as you can see, it's not a straight line. I mean, you can't really predict when the cyber criminal is going to attack more than others. So if you're lucky in January 2019, you didn't have to upload your patch, but you probably did in April 2019 and January and April 2020. So let's look at this from a commercial standpoint about how these CVEs, these common vulnerabilities, affected you over time. Well, first of all, that line represents the time at which Oracle started paying for, asking you to pay for your licenses. So back in September 2017 is when Java 9 was released. And that's when they really started this cadence of every 6 months a new version, which means that Java 10 was released in March 2018. Java 11 was released in September 2018, and so forth. And really, the last free public update by Oracle occurred right before then. And it really affected Java 8 and 11. The reason why we highlight these is despite all the versions that are out there in the market, from what we understand, about 90% of you use version 8 and version 11. So what happens after that line is that there are no more free updates and no security fixes. So back in that previous poll, where I think it was something like 63% or so, that don't pay for Java, that this is a risk that you're facing. It's the fact that unless your Java organizations is updating frequently, you're prone to have attacks occurring that you may not be aware of. Okay, so how do we help with that? Well, first of all, as Anna-Rita pointed out, we're not the only vendor. I mean, I have to admit that there's others besides Oracle and Azul that provide these. But having said that, we're the only 2 vendors which offer something a little bit unique than everywhere else. First of all, everyone offers a patch set update. It's called a PSU, and that occurs quarterly. And what that patch includes is all the security fixes, which is critically important, what I described previously, plus bug fixes and enhancements. When your IT team receives these, generally speaking, it's a best practice that before you upload these patches, you need to run a full regression test before deployment and make sure that it's running smoothly. And this helps ensure maximum level of stability, right? What we in Oracle do is, in addition to that PSU, we offer a security only update. So what that means is that you can separate this, and because this is designed to be installed immediately, you can install this very quickly to offer maximum level of security protection, and then take your time to perform the regression testing for PSUs. Azul and Oracle are the only builds that have always shipped security-only updates on the same day as security vulnerabilities that have been announced. And you may ask, well, how important is this? Well, for those of you in the Java world, the latest patch occurred in July, or just last month. And what happened there was the highest vulnerability was at 8.3, so above 7, the high rating. It impacted technologies such as Hadoop, Elastic, and Solar, and it gave hackers a path to attack the vulnerable systems. So with Azul, we identified the bug, pushed the fix back to the community, and was the only Java vendor not to distribute the bug to our customers. All the other free builds of OpenJDK, they rushed the shipment of the quarterly updates, which took down some widely used Java-based app infrastructure. I mean, after all, if you know there's an 8.3, from a security standpoint, you were probably asked to update that. But then again, you didn't test all the PSUs, the bug fixes and enhancements. And anecdotally, the resolution we've heard have taken several weeks, in some cases with significant delayed, and companies deploying the critical security updates because they didn't have this ability to separate security patches from these PSUs. Right. So with this, that we help streamline your patching process, we satisfy your internal security compliance, we eliminate the risk of running with out-of-compliance software, and we're basically one Java platform across the full application lifecycle. Okay? So these are all the versions of Java that are currently marketed, and there's a large table starting from 6 all the way up to 14. In the future, we already know that 15, 16, and 17 are coming out. So what are some points I'd like to highlight for all of you? Number one, in these boxes, compare us to Oracle, that our model is to offer 1 year more support than Oracle does. So you can see in Java 7 and Java 11, where they expire in a certain month and year, we offer 1 year more. The only reason why Java 8 has the same December 2013 is that in recent times, Oracle announced this date, which we match, and the near future will likely add 1 more year to that. So that kind of shows that we offer even better support than Java. But in addition, let's look at some of these in green. So Java 6, Java 13. Well, if you use Oracle, even if you pay for Oracle, they don't support you beyond December 2018 and March 2020. With us, we do. So we provide, again, full support. And if you highlight 6 and 7, well, no other vendor in the world offers support for these legacy legacy versions, whereas we have. So fundamentally, what you have when you look at all the different versions out there, and 9 and 10 aren't highlighted in that example because 9 was really a small fix and 10 was like a patch release. And from what we understand, very, very few people use some of these. So we only highlight the ones that are most popular. But basically, we're one vendor for all of your Java needs. And we offer consistency, so the single access to all updates across all platforms, versions, and operating systems. And we reduce the complexity in managing all your disparate builds. For the larger organizations, it's not uncommon to have all these different builds because a lot of people may not have the inventory of everything. So with complexity, we can certainly help you there. Going back to just Oracle, if you compare us against Oracle, that fundamentally we offer better support, as highlighted in the previous screen. And like cybersecurity, you may say, well, do I really need it? Well, you kind of wish you had it once you get breached. We're also 100% open source, so you do have the flexibility in case in the future you decide to switch to another vendor. Most don't. But more importantly, that we offer the savings to large customers, many millions of dollars, that we become more affordable. And this is likely one of the other points that our customers really like working with us. So you can try it for yourself. On the right-hand side, go to our website, azul.com, products, Azul Enterprise Savings Calculator. We guarantee a minimum 30% savings, and quite often the normal is 50 to 90% savings in Oracle. So a significant reduction in cost, not just in investment, but don't forget the cost of people and time maintaining your Java libraries as well. The fact that with our simplified version that there's the multiple ways you can look at how you save by using us. In terms of migrations, the next question you may ask is, well, how easy is it to do? Well, we have a large bank that migrated 2,500 applications from Oracle to Zulu, and they did it over the weekend. We have a large SaaS company that transitioned 12,000 servers over 3 months and basically said it's the same process as a dot or patch release. And it really is. That the fact that this is a drop-in replacement, according to one of our customers highlighted on top. Had we known how seamlessly and smooth the process would be, we would have switched from Oracle Java to Azul much earlier on. And how we do this is that we have a really simple migration timeline. Step one, understanding your Java systems. Normally takes 1 or 2 weeks. Aggregate all your Java state or Java assets. You have a feel of what's impacted. Step 2 is prepare a migration plan, both server side and desktop. Usually takes a few days on that one. Firm up your migration strategy, so help prioritize what you do first, second, third, and so forth, and we can assist with that. And then step 3 is to implement, test, and complete the migration. Again, it could take 1 or 2 weeks, and obviously every organization is different, but this is a pretty seamless path, and it's like a patch update. Which means that if quite often we recommend tying your Azul migration into your normal patch process that you normally have. It's as simple as that. So in conclusion, we are the Java experts. This is all we do. We don't sell databases. We don't sell Linux. We don't sell servers. We don't sell services. We just sell Java, and we do it very well. With a single vendor for all your Java issues, and our core competence allows us to have satisfied customers, 99% customer satisfaction. As a next step, we encourage you to come, meet with us. Let's look at how we can help you in particular. We can answer any of the technical questions you have and help develop a bespoke migration plan just for you. And we can share results of what we think our commercials will be with your procurement teams, and then hopefully that'll be enticing to consider switching over. So thanks for the session that both Palisades and myself have been participating in. Now we'll open up the floor to some questions and answers for the last 10 minutes, 15 minutes of this webinar.
So thank you, Albert and Anna-Rita. We do have a couple questions in. The first question is, how should we best negotiate the subscription licenses with Oracle sales?
I'll take that one. Thanks, Marissa. So Oracle's subscription model for Java is actually quite locked in, so to speak. You order your Java subscription licenses off the web from an iStore, and the discounts that you get for your purchases is based on volume spend, and it's pretty much set in stone. The times that you have ability to negotiate with Oracle is if you're considering a non-standard Java agreement like the unlimited license agreement that they're positioning. But if you just want to buy Java licenses, you won't get a lot of attention unless it's a specific Java initiative that they're creating. So unfortunately, it sounds to me, listening to Albert, there might be more opportunity to negotiate with Azul for your licenses than they're currently in place for Oracle's Java subscription.
Thank you. Albert, looks like this next question may be for you.
Okay.
Is Zulu available for the non-x86 platform?
The answer is yes. We support a multitude of platforms. I have on the call my colleague Hiro. Hiro, can you briefly explain the platforms we support?
We support the bunch of so the commercial platforms like Windows, Linux, Amazon Linux, or some microsystems Solaris, and for the microprocessor wise, we support Intel 60-bit 64-bit and 32-bit, and the ARM, and also the microprocessors. So don't worry about the platform support. And there's a full list of supported platforms on our website.
Thank you.
Great, thank you both. Our next question, if we have WebLogic Enterprise as part of a ULA, are we off the hook as far as worrying about Java licensing on the server side of our environment?
The short answer potentially is no. As I've mentioned earlier on, there could potentially be that you don't need to license where you're actually running your WebLogic enterprise licenses and utilize the ones that come with WebLogic, but that will be determined, to the restrictions that is on those licenses, meaning that it has to be in conjunction or run with the WebLogic. So it won't clear you of any usage outside of that.
Thank you. And it looks like we have just one more question. Do you have any recommendation for blocking the ability to download Java?
Okay. Hiro, I think you helped address that question. You're probably better off at answering that one. So I'll leave that one to you.
It is recommended to install proxy servers and the filters for external internet access. Actually, some region of the Asia-Pacific installed the proxy feature to prevent the unwilling or uncertainty download from the Java download. That's the simple answer.
Thank you, Marissa, and thank you, Albert. Really appreciate the time, and for all of those online, thank you very much for joining us. As you can see from this page, we've provided some information here. If you want to reach out to either Albert or myself, feel free to do so. And we look forward to assisting you having the best outcome for your Java requirements. So thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, thank you very much as well. Hope you found this educational, and we hope to hear back from you shortly. Take care, everyone.